this. Michael Jordan purchases a NASCAR team.
Yes, he did. I actually looked up
Go
some
more
stuff
into
about this.
detail about it.
Oh wait,
yeah, Tobias.
yeah, I actually looked up some stuff about this because it's actually kind of dope. So, Michael Jordan, as we were saying, has purchased a NASCAR team. Second black man, I believe I read this correctly. Second black man to currently even own any, like out of all the NASCAR teams, there's only two. Michael Jordan's the second one. And the guy that he got to be the lead driver is, I believe, let me make sure I don't want to say the wrong thing.
It's Bubba Wallace.
Yeah, but I know who he is, but I'm just saying, I was going to say about him being black.
Yeah, he's black.
Yeah, like I believe he's the first. Let me see. I believe he's the first black person to ever be in like this, like considered for the particular races that are going to have him in. And what's crazy also is that Michael Jordan has said, growing up in North Carolina, my parents would take my brothers, sisters, and me to races. And I've been to a NASCAR fan my whole life. The opportunity to own racing teams in partnership with my friend Denny Hamlin and have Bubba Wallace driving us is very exciting. Historically, NASCAR has struggled with diversity, and there have been few black owners. The timing seemed perfect as NASCAR is evolving and embracing social change and more. And also, what's crazy is recently I was reading about how NASCAR actually banned the Confederate flag from being like, shown at NASCAR races and everything. And this Bubba Wallace guy, like as he was starting to like kind of come up in the ranking and start being able to qualify for NASCAR, like racist stuff was happening. Cause I don't think it's a coincidence that NASCAR is primarily South, a South thing, but like a noose was hung in his house, like on his garage, like back in July.
No, it's not his house.
It wasn't his house?
Mm-mm.
It was his workstation, right?
Yeah.
His workstation?
Yeah.
That's still effed up.
It is jacked up. And they investigated, quote unquote, air quotes, they investigated and they came to the conclusion that it was already there and it was already like that. And so they didn't pursue it any further.
Doubtful. I doubt that.
Because he didn't find it. One of the people in the pit, they found it. And they didn't even, who was also black, he knew about it. He didn't bring it to his attention. Someone else did. And he was like, yeah, did you see that? He was like, yeah, I did. But I didn't want to worry you before the race.
Yeah. So my question to y'all is, do y'all think out of all the years, like Michael Jordan's had money, Michael Jordan could have been on like a NASCAR racer. Do y'all think it's like a coincidence that now he's like, oh, let's get us a black person to own, and let's get Michael Jordan to own? Like, I feel like it's, on one hand, I feel like, man, that's super cool, and then on the other hand, I feel like that's really convenient in light of the times. So
it looks like to me, and this is just my opinion, it looks like to me he's trying to make up for what he didn't do before. Like when things came up, when he was in his prime, when he was the man. I feel like this is a attempt at like saying like, oh, I'm not those things that people were saying about me back then. Like, I am for my people. I am. But it's just like, nah, like, that's how I take it, because it was just like when the limelight was on you, you didn't do what you were supposed to do and stand for us. Like, don't do it now because it has it's like a train right now and it's running, and right now everybody is hopping on it and they see it coming together. But when we was trying to get the coal in the engine, like when you was the man, you didn't do that. You actually made it, you delayed what was coming. You know what I mean? So
I agree with that. I was honestly surprised that he even mentioned black people in his statement. That's how far detached I kind of thought he was, honestly. I was like, the fact that he even mentioned diversity, I was like, oh,
But you want to know something?
yeah.
And not to take over this whole segment right here.
No.
I'm not even shocked. I think because we recently saw Mike open up a little bit. Everybody knows Mike is a closed guy. You don't even hear nothing about him. For real. I think us seeing him cry over Kobe, I think him losing Kobe, because Kobe was like his little brother. I think that opened up his eyes a lot. I think that was outside of his father passing and other things that I'm sure is touching to him. I think that's probably Kobe's death probably was something that hit him for the first time in a long time. You know what I mean? For a man that has it all, like it's nothing that he can't get. It's nothing that can't be in his reach. So maybe he's just in his awakening at this moment. Like maybe he is gonna start, stepping up for things and playing his part like he should have been years ago.
Someone did once tell me that men get more sentimental as they get older. So I don't know. What you think, Keith?
No, I don't think that is coincidence. That was the first thing that I thought when I saw that Michael Jordan did this. I was surprised about it, but it's kind of funny because although I was surprised, it actually makes complete sense. You grew up in North Carolina.
Yeah.
You grew up in North Carolina. A lot of the NASCAR stuff takes place. If a lot of it, if not all of it, I'm not sure. No, because I know Daytona doesn't. Daytona is Florida, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But a lot of it takes place, like, I think NASCAR is like, I think Charlotte is like the capital or whatever, like the hub or something, whatever that term is. So it makes perfect sense. He owns a basketball team. He owns the Charlotte Hornets, formerly the Charlotte Bobcats. He owns that team. So it makes sense for you to own the other best thing in Charlotte. You're Michael Jordan. I also think that at the height of racial outrage, that you do it.
That's what I was thinking.
I do agree with the thought of what Sharice is saying. I think that a nerve has been struck by him, and I think that, and like you said, I think he looked back on his life and he says, "What have I done directly for Black people? What have I done?" And Nas talked about it in his album, and I think it's a skewed and it's like, yes, but no, Nas. He was like, everybody said that Michael Jordan doesn't do stuff for Black people. He does. We just don't know about it. And I'm like, no, he just started doing stuff. He just started doing stuff now. It's like, come on. It's been said that Michael Jordan owns prisons, and that he
it's a different Michael Jordan. I've looked into that.
Yeah. Well, I know that there is a Michael Jordan that can go by a different name, and so it wouldn't be under Michael Jordan at all. It would be under a completely different name that he still profits from there being private prisons. But even the sheer fact that that's even a thought, there's some truth in every lie. You don't just make that stuff up. You know what I mean? You didn't get that from nowhere, that Michael Jordan owns private prisons. Something's happening. Say you don't own prisons, you profit from them somehow. You're a profiteer of some sort. Also, the statements that allegedly he's made in regards to his shoes being sold and people dying over the shoes. Like, what are you going to do about the shoes? And he was like, and this is a quote, he said, I don't make them for those type of people. Like, and it wasn't like those type of people that kill people. He was saying, I don't make my shoes for people in the hood that can't afford them. I don't make it. Like, they not for them. But also when they were dying over him, and he was like, that's not my problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So and that's what kept me away from Jordans for a long time. I'm like, man, you don't even care. Your shoes are $200+ and it's going up every year. And you don't care. You know what I mean? Um, you're the reason why a lot of cats are like, I want my shoe to cost less because I saw what it did. I saw what it does to kids that can't afford them. You know what I mean? But even more so, I think not BJ Armstrong, there was a point guard that played on his team, and I'm gonna find the name. I'm gonna find the name at some point in this podcast because we're not coming back next episode to do it. We're gonna figure out his name. He played for don't quote me. I think it was BJ. It's not BJ. It's not BJ Armstrong. But there was a person on his team that was very adamant about what was happening in black culture. And he got crucified for it. And he was out of the NBA. He was on Michael Jordan's team. He was let go from the team and never played another game in the NBA. And Michael Jordan was quiet because he said, well, let me not put words in his mouth, but he was quiet about it all. And asked about it years later, he said, I felt like I could do more behind the scenes than to make a statement or whatever. But I'm like, what did you do? So for this, so long story short, and it goes on. The list goes on. So for him, and I think that's why me, Sharice, and you are surprised by this, is because we're surprised, but it's also like, it's about time. It's about time that you've done something to help, or to shine light, not even shine light, but to do something that directly affects us and directly puts us in a good light. Michael Jordan, you are Michael Jordan, but you are black. You are you are one of the most influential black men. At a time, he was the most influential black man at the highlight at the precipice of his career. You know what I mean? There were things that were happening then that needed to be said then and still need to be said now. So it is better late than never, but never late is better. When we come back, we are going to talk about someone else who is speaking up very late. Are we happy about it, or are we sad about it? Is the question. But we'll be right back to talk about Tory Lanez.